In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to dilute your paint. No matter which paint you decide to purchase, you will need to dilute it with clear water in order to get it to the consistency that you will need for the exercises. Here I have 3 different brands of watercolor paints. All 3 of them are in a semi-fluid state versus paints that you would get in a tray where you have the very solid dried paints. We want to work with something that's already somewhat liquid. These 2 paints are common in Waldorf schools. This is a stone permanent watercolor paint. It comes from Paper Scissors Stone, which is a Waldorf supplier. This is a Stockmar paint, which comes from Germany. It's also common in Waldorf schools. And this is a Cotman watercolor that is a Winsor Newton brand. And it is the second tier of watercolors, not their most expensive. And so whichever one of these you choose, they will all make a really nice, beautiful color. And we will work through this video. I'll do each different type, and depending on which ones you purchase at the store, you can follow along. So in addition to the paints that I have here, I have a brush to help me with the mixing. I have clear water for dilution, and I have a rag just in case. And I also have a piece of white paper, watercolor paper, which I will be using to test the consistency and the strength of the dilution so that I know when to stop adding water. So I think I'm ready to begin. Let's get started. When we paint with wet on wet watercolor, our most important objective is to work with the color. The way that we mix our paint allows for us to have the greatest amount of flexibility within the painting activity. When I am working with children who are younger, say in the 1st and 2nd grade, they're 6, 7 turning 8, they're still getting a hold on the painting techniques, and I don't want to focus too much on the techniques. I want to focus more on the color. So when I mix paint for the younger grades, I will try to create a mix that is intense in color, but uniformly diluted. So when the child wants a strong color, they'll use the color right out of the jar and mix very little water in their process. If they want a thinner color, then they can add water to the painting and it will create thinner spots, less intense color. With older students, they have more of a handle on how to control the water, how much water to add or remove from their paintings, and therefore they can actually have more pure paint in their jar. And so the pure paint, because it's heavier, tends to sink to the bottom and create a sediment of pigment on the bottom of the jar. The mix that I'm going to make with you today is this sediment mix. But the important part is that when you mix the paint, this part of the paint, the fluid part of the paint, isn't just water that has to integrate the sediment. You actually create this uniform mix and then put a little bit of extra paint on the bottom. Because if you just put paint on the bottom and added water, your paint itself would become very, very diluted and you wouldn't get the same kind of color experience that you're looking for. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by mixing in our jar a uniform mix, and I'm not going to fill the jar completely full. I'm probably going to fill it about halfway, and I'm going to create this uniform mix. Once that uniform mix is completed, then I'm going to pour in to the jar some additional pure paint right out of the jar or tube, and that will settle on the bottom of the jar and can be used in our painting lessons, and we'll talk about that. in day one. All right. So let's get started. I'm going to start here with this stone paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of paint. Sometimes you need to help it out. Okay. This is why I have my rag. Now I'm going to pour. I'm not going to fill the whole jar up. We said we were going to do a half a jar, but I'm not going to fill it all the way up to a half a jar. I'm just going to give it a little splash of color, a splash of water, and then what I'm going to use my brush, and I'm going to really try to blend all that color into the water. So even places where it dripped here, really try to integrate it all into the water. Let's see how we did here. So that's quite a nice medium color. I think I want to put a little bit more color in there. So there is no measurement. How much do I put in? I'm not exactly sure. Was that it? But I'm really trying to get it all blended in. I'm going to test. So here's a little stronger. I think that's pretty good. So what that will allow me to do is if I want to have it lighter, then I would just add water, and that will make my paint a little bit lighter. So I get this nice, intense, rich blue. Now to get even richer blue, I'm going to just take a little bit, see if you can see it here, pour out just a little bit more. And this I'm not going to mix in. I'm just going to let that sit there. And I close that up. And there's my sediment mix. So at the bottom, I don't know if you can see it, but the bottom I have this nice dollop of rich, undiluted paint. And then I have the uniform mix sitting on top of it. Okay, Stockmore paint will be similar. This one also is a little resistant to coming out of the jar, so we will have to help it out. Give it a little squeeze here. It's a nice dollop. Some clean water here. And so again, I'm going to make every effort to mix all of it so there's no lumps, no extra undiluted bits. I want to test it first before I add more water, but it's nice and thick. Okay, so here, this I think is a little thick, a little too thick. It still has, it doesn't have as fluid a quality as I want it to be. It's kind of sticky. So I'm going to add a little bit more water. Not a lot. Mix it up. And here, that's much better. This one is also a nice rich blue. And again, if I add water to it, it will get a nice blend and a pull out, right? So then my finishing touch will just be a little dollop, another dollop, and that will just sit on the bottom. It will kind of dissolve. It'll help here. Come on. Bloop. Okay, great. So that little blop will, as it sits for, you know, the rest of the day, I'm going to paint tomorrow, it will sit and kind of dissolve to the bottom of the jar. So it will be down there, down at the bottom. And for you to get it at the bottom, you'll tip the jar and get to that nice dollop at the bottom, the goodies, as we call them. Okay, so I'll close that one up. So we have our stone and we have our stockmar, and now we'll have our Cotman. So give it a nice squeeze on the bottom. Put some clean water. That's a little too much. Try that. Clean off my brush. Okay. So you can see it kind of sticks to the jar, and what you want to do is use the water to make sure it's not sticking. It doesn't have that same sticky consistency. Give it a test. That's nice. Okay, so this is not as strong as the others, you can see. So these two are sort of our consistent mix. So this is a little thin, so I'm going to put a little bit more paint in here. And you'll find as you mix different colors, they will have different consistencies. So you want to take your time and test each one as you go along so that you find you have a strong color with the uniform mix before you add the sediment. Okay, let's see how that is. I think that's better. That's really great. Okay, there. That's super. I might add just a little bit more water. Just a little bit, not too much. There. Okay, and now I'm going to put my sediment at the bottom. Nice big dollop at the bottom. My cover. So now I've mixed the ultramarine blue, and it would be my next task to mix all the rest of my colors. So I send you off to do that on your own so that when you start on day one, you have all 6 of your colors ready and mixed in the sediment mix. So at the bottom is going to be the sediment, and in the upper part is the uniform mix. So good luck, and please do reach out to me if you have any questions. I look forward to working with you.